Mr. Allan Parker, thank you.
It's a joy to be with you. A joy to be with you.
Allan, you are the newest member of DASAT.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
Yep.
you come to us slightly different to the norm for
Mhm.
DASAT.
Yeah.
Number one, you're sighted,
Yes.
which is
Yes.
very important.
Yeah.
Number two, you are a behavioural scientist
Mhm.
and a linguist.
Mm-hmm.
Why come to DASAT? What appeals
Wow.
to you about DASAT?
The moment I heard you talking about accessibility, I thought to myself, as you know, the first 30 years of my life, because of an eye condition, I didn't read. And I grew big ears to become a really good listener. And so the minute you talked about it, even though now I read, very well, and that's not an obstacle to me, I'm permanently considerate of how different we all are, and how important it is that we appreciate those differences. I think would be one of the really important things. And every time I heard you and Mark talk, all I could hear was potential. The potential was daunting to me, and often potential takes work to produce, but the sort of things you're talking about are so immediate and available, simple, and you guys have raised my awareness of how much opportunity there is for all of us to be more aware of our normal habitual way, inadvertently cut somebody out or some people out.
That's it.
And not ever with intent.
Oh, no.
Never with intent, but remember one of the first times you came to a course with me, and I'm busily drawing up on the board with my flip charts and my coloured pens, and it wasn't very long before it occurred to me that I had you in the room, and I thought, I've actually got to be describing what I'm writing there. Mm-hmm. And that opened up a whole new thought process in me. And I think there's some of the reasons that I was intrigued by what you're doing.
What does accessibility mean to you?
I think there's two answers to it. Conscious accessibility is when something is done in a way that is inconvenient for me, or prevents me being able to do what I want to do. E.g., I must leave 9 out of 10 websites without participating. Mm. And I do it because, I'm a linguist. If I've got to read something 3 times to understand it, and partly because there's a body of text and there's 40 words in the sentence, I'm just going to go, no, too complex, too hard done. I don't want to have to work hard. I'm happy to work, but not work hard. And the designers who designed that had no clue of the fact that I wanted a simple headline. I wanted an arrow to tell me where to go next. Yeah. I wanted, when I couldn't find something, to go, please put me through to.
Mm.
Yeah.
One of the things I find very interesting in listening to you speak is the way you are adapting to the communication needs of the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Other than what you've talked about with the flip charts before, what else are you doing now to adapt to the communication needs?
You heighten my awareness enormously, And one of the things you did was you mentioned people who speak English as a second language. And ever since you've done that, when I'm presenting, and you'll notice that I do it here, I put in more pauses and for slightly longer. Because I'm aware of somebody's, if English isn't somebody's primary or first language, they may well be translating inside their head.
Yeah.
Well, particularly if you also teach neuroscience. If I'm teaching about the brain, there are times I'm going to be using jargonistic words that they're just going to throw it into confusion. But if I say the jargonistic word, and I go hippocampus, and I say that's the little bit of the brain right in the middle that decides what we remember long term.
Yeah.
Yep, that's all I need to do. Now that takes care of the person who's speaking the second language. It takes care of the person who's frightened by big words. And it takes care of the visually impaired person because I've just described what it is and where it is. So
excellent.
It's raised my awareness that I've got to be varying how I operate and considering much, much more than I did previously. Yeah.
Excellent. What about, I know you've written a number of books.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to be, how are you going to change your approach to writing books in the future? Is there strategies that you've thought about there, or is it something you've just gone, oh my gosh, we'll worry about that later?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly we're in the process of turning a whole lot of stuff I've written into audio books. I'm doing much, much more podcasting now than I ever have. I'm doing a lot more question and answering work. In the printed form, my next book is going to be horizontal, not vertical.
Wow.
And that's very simply because the hippocampus in the brain remembers difference. And if you're reading a book that you're actually turning it differently, every part of your different behaviour to accommodate that book will do what's called consolidate the information, which means that the hippocampus goes, oh, this is different. They're behaving differently while doing it. Put this into long-term memory. Now, the other thing is, as I mentioned earlier in our discussion, I wouldn't have a paragraph with more than 3 words in it, three lines in it.
Yes.
Every paragraph would be 3 lines. Beside every message, every paragraph will be a 4-word summary.
Excellent.
And particularly because of my contact with you and Mark and Dasat, every diagram will have a written description beside it.
Wonderful.
And to pick up on your word, contrast, all the diagrams will be done in contrasting colour. Because there's a little piece of the brain called V4 which sits back about here. And V4 does almost nothing from the time we're born till the time we die, but perceive colour.
Oh, okay.
And it's most excited by contrast colour.
Excellent.
And if you get V4 activated, it sends the information straight down to the hippocampus and says to the hippocampus, this is contrast, this is colour, this is important, please stick it in long-term memory. And those 2 pieces of the brain have a close relationship to each other. So contrast in as many places as I can. Fewer sentences and more questions.
Okay, moving back to Dasat, you talked about the potential of Dasat. Where do you see the potential? Obviously, Mark and I've got very firm opinions, but what's your opinion?
I have lots of thoughts about it. I think you guys are part of the next big social movement. you know, I remember go back 30 years and we talked about climate change and you were either a greenie or you weren't. And if you're a greenie, you're a bit nuts.
Yep.
Yep. I remember when I wrote Switch on Your Brain in 1983, and I was suggesting that the two halves of the brain, if we could do things to make them work together, we'd get better anything. And I was, you know, I was a nutter at that point in time. And, you know, now everybody's talking about the importance of integration.
Yes.
Yeah. We go back 30 years and what's happening in the gender debate is nowhere near what it is today, and the equity is... So these are really big social trends. And I think accessibility, particularly with the emphasis on diversity that's going on at the moment, I think that accessibility is one of the most profoundly important techniques, strategies, approaches to actually bring about inclusion, honour diversity, and make the world a more equitable place.
What would you say to our leaders then? Our politicians?
Let me go to non-political leaders first.
Yep.
What would I say to them? I remember doing some work for the federal government years ago around energy conservation. And at that stage, energy conservation was a difficult thing to get people involved in. And we called it energy efficiency and looked at changing energy use in a way that was more profitable. The moment we got profitable in, and it was, a new trend occurred. Organisations went from talking about it not doing much to actually doing a lot. I think accessibility is in that same mode. I think it is one of the next big social trends that we'll see. And I'm delighted to say I think you guys are pioneering in your approach to doing it. Your simplicity. In systems theory, we say if there was 100 things that we could change in a system, there is usually one or two things that we call high leverage impact points. And a high leverage impact point is a small thing that if you impacted or changed or moved it, it'll actually have a ripple effect on everything else. And I think accessibility is a high leverage impact point for every executive of every business that I am aware of or know of. I think it's critical. I think it's a bottom line issue in business.
Thank you, Allan. I'm going to hand over to Mark now. He's got some questions for you as well. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's been fun.
It has been.
Thank you.
Thank you.